Jerry and Charlie riding through the airwaves, bringing you the heat. Come on, pull your bands, now get up out your seats. They're bringing you all things Mets. They're bringing you all things Mets. They're bringing you all things Mets. Now you're listening to Shea Station.
Today is Monday, July 28th, episode 227 of the Shea Station podcast, and it's going to be a fun one, folks. The Mets have won 7 in a row. They're having one of their best stretches of the entire season. They've extended their division lead over the Philadelphia Phillies to a game and a half, and they're in contention for one of the best records in all of baseball. Everything is coming up blue and orange on this recent stretch. They're coming off a pair of sweeps, one at home against the Los Angeles Angels, against a team that you should beat, and one that really surprised me. They went to Oracle Park, a place where they haven't won a series since 2018, and they faced off against the San Francisco Giants, who are contending in the National League this year, and they swept them. They beat their 2 best starting pitchers. They played great fundamental baseball. The bottom of the order came up so big in this series. It's been really fun to watch, man. The Mets are playing some of their best ball of the season. Today is a solo pod. I'm your one and only host today, Jolly Olive, a.k.a. Jack. Not joining me is Jerry Blevins, who's hosting some people this week. We'll chat with him on Thursday. We will have a special guest in the back half of the show because the Mets are playing the San Diego Padres next, so why not have the biggest Padres fan on planet Earth, Ryan Cohen, on the show to preview that series. It should be an explosive series between 2 of the most electric teams in baseball. But for now, let's talk about the baseball that was with the New York Mets. Back-to-back sweeps. We're going to start with the Angels series. We'll go through it pretty briefly because the Giants series is the more recent one and the more exciting one, honestly. The biggest excitement came from Game 1 of that Angels series. The Mets rallied from down 4-0 and came back late in one of Francisco Alvarez's first games back with the team. He got a rousing standing ovation. I didn't get a chance to shout out Mets fans. If you were there in Game 1 against the Angels and you were part of that crowd rooting him on and giving him that ovation when he came up to bat for the first time, I believe that this recent hot streak has a lot to do with you. Francisco Alvarez said it as much in his post-game presser about how much that meant to him and how much that allowed him to get comfortable in a Mets uniform once again. So that was great. Alvy had some key moments in this series and the San Francisco series as well. He was a big piece of that rally that the Mets put together to come back late and win this game. Worked from 0-2 to draw a walk, one of 2 walks he had in that game, as well as a double later on. He walked, Acuna got a knock. Lindor was in the midst of a really bad slump, but he got on and stole a base, and then Soto got the big 2-run single to back up what has been a weird stretch for Kodai Senga. This was a bad start. He had a bad start on Sunday Night Baseball last night. 3 innings, 4 runs against the Angels in this one. Got a no decision, but luckily the Angels defense helped us out here. Chris Taylor wasn't able to field that Alvarez double. Yohan Moncada made a really bad throw home on a Ronnie Mauricio grounder, and the Mets were able to steal that game. And that kind of set up the entire momentum for the rest of the series for them. Frankie Montas won his 3rd straight start in Game 2. Ryan Stanek got the save in this game. Francisco Alvarez, though, is again the story. Hit a moonshot of Kyle Hendricks, who started the game strong and then fell apart late. Game-tying homer in his 2nd game back for the minors. That was a welcome sight for Francisco Alvarez. And we're going to be saying his name a lot in this show. Mets won Game 2. They also won Game 3. Resulting in the sweep. Sean Manaea looked good again, striking out the world still. Still only 5 innings. I'm hoping that his next start will be him stretched out to full length. But what helps out is Pete Alonso breaking out of a 2-for-34 slump with a 3-run homer to power the Mets to a victory. This was also the game where Francisco Lindor broke out of his own slump, 0-for-31, which was a career-long, approaching the Mets' all-time record of 0-for-37, I believe, which is owned by Ray Ordonez. Not company I wanted Francisco Lindor to keep. I know that their gloves are similar. Their bats are not. Luckily, Francisco Lindor came through with 2 RBI singles in this game, so he breaks out. There was some ump show fiascos near the end here. Luis Rengifo struck out in an at-bat where he saw 6 balls against Edwin Diaz, but we take those. Edwin Diaz had another great week as well. And the Mets swept the Angels. This was really cool because they're coming off that Red Series, the David Wright retirement, which the Mets, came out just completely flat in that game. They were able to salvage the last game in a game that I thought, honestly, they didn't really have a lot of business winning. because they didn't play particularly well. They were able to salvage that last game, and they parlayed that into a series sweep. So it ends up being a 4-2 homestand when you drop the first 2 games, which is always nice. So good baseball here by the Mets. This was a sweep is always great. You never should expect to sweep a team, but this was also a series I expected them to win. They were playing a lesser team, a team that was not as fundamentally sound as them, a team with less pitching talent. I know the Angels can bang the ball around and have been doing so, but this was a team that the Mets should beat, and it was nice to pick up 3 wins and sort of get momentum back under your feet, because we were in a stretch here for a little bit that the Mets were scuffling. They won the Yankees series, and they dropped the series in Baltimore, that disappointing doubleheader. I ended up going 3-3 in that road trip, and then lost the series against Cincy. So they were in a 4-6 stretch entering the Los Angeles Angels series, and it was nice to see them play baseball that we thought they were much more capable of in that series. And that kind of led to what became a huge sweep on the road for the Mets in San Francisco. And game 1 started with Clay Holmes, who has not looked like the Clay Holmes we saw in the first 2 months over his past 5 starts or so. This was a really important outing for him. He hasn't completed 6 innings since his start against Colorado on June 7th, and I'm starting to think that we may just not see that again from Clay Holmes. And I know there's been a lot of talk of like, well, if you can't get 6 innings out of Clay Holmes, do you go out and acquire a starter and just move him to the bullpen? Do you call up Paul Blackburn? Do you call up one of these kids in Brandon Sproat or Nolan McLean to take a rotation spot if you know this guy isn't going to give you a quality start every 5th day? And I think this outing in San Francisco was exemplary of why the Mets are not going to do that. Because even this version of Clay Holmes, which gave up 6 hits, and they were pretty loud hits by the San Francisco Giants lineup. They have a decent lineup, even if they are scuffling right now. 6 hits, the 1 walk, which was huge, no home runs, and then 2 strikeouts. Even this version of Clay Holmes, I still think is worth it to keep as a starter. There was a pivotal moment in this game, too, where Holmes, who pays a 3rd-time around penalty pretty often, came up in the 5th inning at around 100 pitches, and he had to face the 2 and 3 hitters again in the lineup. The Mets had a lead in this one, which I think permitted Mendoza to make this decision. But it was, let's paint the exact picture here. So a single to Schmidt and a single to Bailey, 2 guys that you don't want to let beat you at the bottom of the Giants order. And then Ramos, Devers, and Adames, 2 on, nobody out. Holmes at around 90 pitches. I thought a logical point for him to be pulled. The Mets bullpen was decently rested from their Angels series. But again, the Mets bullpen is never fully rested because they never get any length from their starters. And I liked the decision in a 6-1 game to give Holmes a shot. I thought after he got Ramos, he would get pulled because Devers was the lefty. And if Devers runs into one, it's a 6-4 game. And suddenly the entire outlook of the game changes. Instead, Holmes strikes out Devers and is able to get Adames right after on a pop out, enabling him to get the win in this game. It was his first win in 5 starts since he beat Atlanta. And I thought that was a good thing for Holmes, I think, mentally, to get back on the horse here, get his 9th win of the year. Again, not a super strong start, but considering what he had done recently, 5 1/3, 4 earned runs against the Reds, 5 innings, 5 earned runs against the Baltimore Orioles. I mean, we have not seen a quality Holmes outing. We haven't seen an outing of 5 innings and 1 earned run since June 25th from Clay Holmes. So I thought, even if it's not the sexiest line, this was a big outing for Clay Holmes' confidence. And I think that's important going forward because when you picture the Mets in a 3-game series for the playoffs, it's going to be some combination of Peterson, Senga, and Minaya. But if they advance and they get to that 4-game set or that 7-game set, they're going to need a guy to take the ball on that 4th day. Will it be Clay Holmes? Will it be Tyler McGill? Will it be one of the guys in the minor leagues? I don't know. Will it be Frankie Montas, who's been pitching better as well? One of those guys is going to get that ball because I don't think the Mets are going to trade for a starter, and we'll do more trade deadline talk in this episode. But Clay Holmes is my leading candidate, and it's nice to see the Mets still have confidence in him as he continues to push that innings limit. He's at 113 2/3 innings on the year now. Very, very far above his career high before this, which was 2021 when he pitched 70 innings. So remember, this is unmarked territory for Clay Holmes. And next year, the Mets want him to be a starter again. I assume that's part of why they gave him all that money. So go out there and continue to start games in August and September, and we'll see what happens. There is a point where I think it'll get too bad, and the Mets might have to, chalk it up and move him to the bullpen and find a new role for him. But I don't think it's gotten there yet, and I think there's reason to believe that it won't get there at any point in the 2025 season. I still believe in Clay Holmes is the summation of that long talking point. A guy that every Mets fan should have believed in, even in that 0-for-31 slump, is Francisco Lindor, who has a homer in this game and 3 knocks, a double, 3 runs scored, and a stolen base. We have to talk about the Mets getting to Logan Webb. Logan Webb, who has tormented the Mets in his career. His last 4 starts against the Mets, 27 innings, 4 earned runs. I posted his career game log against the Mets because I feel like every time I watch him take the mound against the Mets, it's just you chalk it up to a loss. I'm going to pull it up really quick here because I think it needs to be said if I can find it anywhere. Point being, okay, here it is. So Logan Webb in 2024, he had an 8-inning no-earned run start against the Mets and then a 7-inning no-earned run start against the Mets. So 15 innings, no-earned runs in the calendar year. I believe Gary Cohen mentioned that on the broadcast as well. He's been at the center of a ton of Mets heartbreaking losses against San Francisco, most notably that 13-12 game from 2022 with Jock Peterson hitting 3 home runs. He was the starter in that game, 5 innings, 2 earned runs. The Mets have not gotten to Logan Webb basically ever in his major league tenure, and I think that they picked up something mechanically. Keith said it on the broadcast that it looked like he was rushing his delivery and his mechanics were a little bit off, and the recognition on the Mets end was quick because they scored in the first inning, and they did it with great situational hitting, which is so refreshing because the whole story this season with Juan Soto and with the entire Mets offense has been poor numbers with runners in scoring position and failures to get guys over and get the sacrifice fly. And they did exactly that in the first inning. They got a double from Nimmo on the first pitch of the game. Lindor singled. He steals second base. So there's 2 guys on, second and third, nobody out. Soto hits a ground out. It brings a run home. And then Pete Alonso gets the sacrifice fly. And I know it's 2 outs, but it's 2 runs. And you never really know with the Giants at Oracle Park. When the Mets go there, it's just a house of horrors. So to get that early 2-0 lead, I think was so big. And then the Mets played long ball against them. Lindor gets the home run. We go to the 4th inning. They do more situational hitting because the bottom of the order, the baby Mets, who were the story of this entire series, get a rally going in the 4th inning. It's a single for Brett Beatty. It's a single for Francisco Alvarez. And then it's a walk for Ronnie Mauricio. He's been doing that more lately. He's been displaying much better plate discipline. And we'll talk about him in that Sunday night game. But they kickstart this rally. Bases loaded, nobody out. Again, the Mets only come away with 2 runs here, but it's situational hitting. Tyrone Taylor beats out the double play ball. That's an RBI fielder's choice. Nimmo gets the knock to bring home 2 more runs, and suddenly it's a 6-1 game, and that enables Clay Holmes to get that 5th inning. So these things complement each other in the end. The Mets offense putting together rallies and actually getting the rallies to come to fruition enables their starting pitchers to make more mistakes, or at least have the room to make those mistakes. So I didn't have the Logan Webb game being the blowout game, but it ends up coming out that way. And shout out the Mets bullpen. Oh my goodness, the Mets bullpen is on some kind of heater right now, especially after months of struggles. I mean, we have a Dalton Feely stat here that I got to pull up. They had a 5.47 ERA in June when the Mets went 12-15. They had a 4.06 mark in July, which doesn't sound that bad, but it was a revolving door of guys between your Chris Davinsky's and your Jose Castillo's and your Rico Garcia's and every guy. Like, it felt like every day there was a new move. Brandon Waddell, Justin Hagenman. I mean, all these guys coming through. 4.06 mark in July. Now, they've only allowed 4 runs in their past 27 innings in this recent heater of a stretch. And this game 1 against the Giants was awesome. I mean, Braziban, he allows 2 knocks, but he gets out of it. Rico Garcia, who I guess we've been sharing joint custody with the New York Yankees on. He goes over there, allows 2 earned runs, comes right back. I tweeted this. I don't know if you can let him go again. I know that he doesn't have options, and the Mets are in a tight spot with their bullpen maneuvering, but he has looked so good in a Mets uniform. He throws absolute gas. He's now up to 7 2/3 innings, no earned runs, 2 hits, no walks, 8 strikeouts in a Mets uniform. I think this is a weapon you have to keep until he demonstrates that you can't keep him. Sort of like Chris Davinsky of, I think he gave us like 8 shutout innings, had his first kind of blip of allowing runs, and then he immediately got DFA'd. So I think it's like if you have no options and you're in this Mets bullpen, no matter how good your stuff is, you're walking a tightrope. But Rico Garcia, 6 up, 6 down, 3 strikeouts. He saves a lot of other relievers in the Mets bullpen and keeps this thing a mopped-up blowout at an 8-1 final. Jose Castillo strikes out 3 in his inning to wrap up the game there as well. This was a great game by the Mets. Really, I think, set the tone for the series. Got the bullpen another day of rest because you didn't use your A guys, and it allowed you to get Reed Garrett and Edwin Diaz in big moments in Game 2 and Game 3. Game 2 was a huge pivot point for the entire series. You had David Peterson on the bump, so the only guy you can really count on to give you 6 innings at this juncture in the Mets season. And much similar to Clay Holmes, he didn't look insanely sharp. I mean, the Giants were on him. He gave up 8 hits in 6 innings, and I believe, 4 strikeouts, but 11 base runners in 6 innings, 8 hits and 3 walks on 91 pitches. But Peterson, like he's done all year, he's just able to maneuver this traffic. They had runners in scoring position in 4 of the 6 innings, but the Giants with runners in scoring position was a narrative in this entire series. 0 for 23 by the end of it, it's a tough break. And good on the Mets on situational pitching and not giving in and finding the corners and not throwing anything too meaty in the zone to allow that big hit to happen, because the Giants ended the series never getting that big knock. David Peterson, I mean, the first inning of this could have gone a very different way. 2 on, 1 out. Matt Chapman hits a rifle. Mark Vientos gloves it, throws to second, short hops the throw. Brett Beatty with a nice pick. So that was nice. There's a lot of great defense in this game specifically. It felt like the Giants were just in hell, like in batting average on balls in play hell. They were hitting screamers and liners that were just finding gloves. I don't know if it was Mets defensive positioning or just a bad case of bad luck for the Giants, but they could not find a way to get their line drives to turn into knocks. Mark Vientos did get the big hit in this game, the 2-run double to give the Mets the 2-1 lead in the top of the 6th inning. He's been going through it. He has, I think, a 6-game hit streak, which is like the highlight of his season. It was cool to see him get an extra base hit. He did say in the game, post-game interviews, that he said he's not going to change up anything about his approach. He's doubling down on his approach, which I think makes sense. Mark is a very confident guy, and you want to exude that confidence in the good times and the bad. And I'll say this, in his last 12 games, 44 plate appearances, no home runs, which stinks, 1 walk, which stinks, but a 302 batting average, a 760 OPS. This is easily his best stretch of the year. Hopefully he can parlay that into more good play. But it's tough to find him playing time when everyone who plays his spots is also playing terrific baseball, specifically Starling Marte, who missed some time with injury, has come back, and has continued to stay hot. He goes 2 for 4 in this game, 2 doubles. He's 11 for 19 in his last 5 games. He's hitting 600 with an OPS near 1.5 in that stretch, and he is the right-handed DH. So, I mean, what do? Do you cut your losses and you play Vientos at third and Beatty at second and McNeil in center? Like, there's a lot of maneuvering, but then where does Ronnie Mauricio play? He's been playing great. The Mets have a good problem. They have a logjam of talented position players. I think Mark Vientos is unfortunately the odd man out there, and we'll talk about trade deadline stuff with him too. There's been some recent rumors there. But he had a nice moment in this game getting the big knock. That gave the Mets the 2-1 lead. And because Rico Garcia and Jose Castillo were so nails in Game 1, it gave Reed Garrett, Ryan Stanek, and Edwin Diaz a full day of rest after the off day for travel. And I think that showed up pretty big here. Reed Garrett gets 2 strikeouts in a perfect inning. Ryan Stanek continues to put together a really nice stretch for him. Maybe he's finally getting right. Maybe this is like the Ryan Stanek we were promised in the second half of last year and the guy in the playoffs that we saw. Hopefully that continues to happen. I know he's going to be due for one blow up a month, and you just hope that doesn't come at a super inopportune time. And then Edwin Diaz locks down his 22nd save of the year. The game ends with a Patrick Bailey line out. Pete Alonso springs into the air and gloves that. There were so many, like I said before, line drives that just caught gloves, and that could have tied the game. Instead, it ends the game and ends a very frustrating night for the Giants offense and a very encouraging night for the Mets pitching staff, who continue to just put together this really good stretch, aided by some great defense there. So the Mets, they clinched their first series win in San Francisco against the Giants since 2018. 7 years without a series win at this demon ballpark. And they get it when they really needed it because they were kind of scuffling in early July and most of June. And now they're putting together a hot stretch at the right time, right before the trade deadline, where you can kind of cash in and make a big time move to, demonstrate that this is a World Series caliber roster. They're certainly playing like it right now. Game 3, Sunday Night Baseball. The Giants throw a bullpen game. That's, you got to do what you got to do. Giants down to 3 starting pitchers, and the Mets beat their 2 best in Logan Webb and Robbie Ray. I tweeted it last night. I'm very curious to see what this Giants team does at the trade deadline because they can't sell, but we'll get into that in a little bit. They do bullpen game in Game 3, and the Giants bullpen is no joke. I know the Mets ran up the score to 8 runs in Game 1, but not a lot of that came from the bullpen. Most of that was off Logan Webb, and then they only scored 2 runs in Game 2 because their bullpen, the Giants, has been so great. They were able to hold them there. Luckily, the Mets won that battle. When you get a whole game of Giants bullpen, I'm not getting the feeling as a fan of like, oh, nice, I'm licking my chops, let's go. Like, no, they have Joey Lucchesi, who has been nails for them as a lefty reliever, which it does kind of hurt my heart. Like, I know the Mets are in a better spot now because they have Gregory Soto, who they just traded for, and Brooks Raley has looked really good, but the answer to all their lefty problems was kind of just in AAA, I guess, for 2 years, which stinks, but I'm happy for Mr. Cherv that he's getting his opportunity. They have Randy Rodriguez, who has been a top 5 reliever in the game, and then a bunch of guys who are just like 6'7" and up that can throw absolute gas with breaking pitches that fall off the table. Tyler Rogers is, of course, throwing with his knuckles scraping the dirt. So they have weapons, is the point to be made here. And that was compounded by the fact that Kodai Senga had another, so-so start where, 4 hits, 5 walks in 5 innings. I don't really know what's going on with Kodai in this stretch. It doesn't look like he has total command of his fastball because he laid 2 meaty fastballs in the middle of the zone to Matt Chapman in this game, who drove both of them out of the ballpark. He had a nice day. He ends the day 5 innings, 3 earned runs, 4 hits, 5 walks, 3 strikeouts for the no decision. I think it was big for Kodai to get through 5 at the minimum, but this is not the guy we saw pre-oblique injury. The confidence isn't there. I knew the ghost fork will always be there, and guys will always be chasing it. It is one of the best pitches in baseball, but it's really tough for Kodai to become his dominant form without the fastball at the top of the zone to play off that ghost fork, and then the cutter, which has been getting him a lot of ground balls this year. He gave up a homer on a fastball and a cutter to Matt Chapman. So not a strong outing for him. The Mets were down in this game at one point, 3-2 after that 5th inning rally, but then music to my ears. Ronnie Mauricio's crack of the bat in the 7th inning. Is it happening? It might be happening, at least from the left side. Ronnie Mauricio, not only does he homer into McCovey Cove with a thunderous barrel, he does it against Randy Rodriguez, who had allowed 1 home run in 40-plus innings leading into this outing. When he came into the game in the 7th inning, the Giants were executing their back-end bullpen, we need to win this game moment with him coming in, because I think the original plan was probably 6 outs for him. Ronnie greets him, he came in an inning earlier, but Ronnie greets him, gets the home run there. The Mets strike out on Nimmo and Lindor's at-bats that follow, and Rodriguez makes them look bad, honestly. Like, it looks like they have no clue because he's got nasty stuff. And then Juan Soto, who had a quiet series. Pete Alonso didn't have a great last game. Lindor had a big first game, then kind of quieted down. Soto hadn't done much. He had an 0 for 5 in this series as well. He homers to the opposite field. It looks like he just kind of gets it off the end of the bat, but he's so strong, and he's able to go with the pitch so well that he's able to homer off Randy Rodriguez as well. So Randy Rodriguez's season home run total goes from 1 to 3 in 1 outing, and it's the Mets getting it done. Every time I see Ronnie Mauricio in the dugout, he's draped on Soto's shoulder. I like that pairing. That feels like that has a tangible effect on Ronnie Mauricio's development as a major league position player. And he goes 4 for 4 in this game. I mean, just an absolute, what an awesome night for Ronnie Mauricio to do it on Sunday Night Baseball, to get a couple doubles, a homer off one of the best pitchers in baseball. He's starting to look like the real deal and starting to look like a guy you can't really trade. It's something interesting there. So the Mets jump in front on those home runs, and the bullpen once again is able to nurse the lead. The Mets, they take a creative route. Jose Butto has his first good outing since returning in the 6th inning. Gregory Soto comes in. Really like that Mendoza called on him to face the top of the order as kind of like a litmus test for, let's throw this guy into the fire. We traded a prospect that we kind of like in that deal to get a major league reliever, and reliever prices will continue to go up. There's a world where Gregory Soto is the best reliever that the Mets acquire at this deadline. I think that might be troublesome news for a lot of Mets fans, but that world does exist. But Gregory Soto comes in, gets the top of the order, 1, 2, 3, gets a strikeout, gets Devers out, like perfect. He's going to be our left-handed specialist. He's much more of a platoon pitcher than Brooks Raley. He's got the wipeout slider. He's got a fastball that ticks near 100. It makes sense that he's going to be the left-handed specialist, whereas Brooks Raley, a larger arsenal, doesn't throw as hard, can get both sides of the ball out. That tandem I like a lot. It's no Minter and Danny Young. I liked that tandem a little bit more. Danny Young kind of feels similar to Gregory Soto in a way of like wipeout sweeper, has some velo at the top of the zone. Felt like he was finding his footing right before the injury. And then Minter, obviously, I think was the best reliever in the pen besides Edwin Diaz. But this tandem, it feels like they fill the same roles. And that's what David Stearns wanted at the beginning of the season with that bullpen outlook. So I like where the Mets have landed. And hopefully we see more good outings from Gregory Soto. Then Reed Garrett gets the ball in the 8th inning. Gets 2 outs there. I thought it was an interesting move to pull him before the inning ended because Raley comes in and the Giants are able to pinch hit Wilmer Flores for Dominic Smith, which, by the way, very 2019 Mets coded right there, or 2018, whatever year it would be that those two were teammates. Wilmer comes in. I liked that matchup for the Giants, and he's able to get a knock off Raley, and that had me a little bit worried, but luckily Raley is able to get Bailey out on his weaker side. He's a much better left-handed hitter than right-handed hitter, and that leads us to the 9th inning. Mets are nursing a 5-3 lead because Brandon Nimmo gets an insurance knock in the top of the inning. He had another great series. He's having an unbelievable stretch as well, Brandon Nimmo, like not getting talked about enough how good he's been. Quick little butter knife. I have to do it because I love Brandon Nimmo. I mean, since the beginning of June when he had a 709 OPS on the year, 47 games, 10 homers, 9 doubles, 30 RBIs, 11 stolen bases without being caught. We haven't even talked about the Mets running all over the Giants in this series as well. They continue to run so well with such great efficiency on the year. Brandon Nimmo, he's become a legitimate stolen base threat, and it's made him a much more dynamic player by proxy. So that's really cool to see. So we go to the 9th inning. Mets are up 5-3. Edwin Diaz in for a second straight day because you were able to get him arrested in game 1. Huge. Doesn't have his best stuff right off the bat. Fastball's a little bit erratic. He walks Jung-Hoo Lee. He hits Elliot Ramos, which it looked like there was enough there to, I think, warrant a hit by pitch. It was close, and I didn't mind the Mets reviewing it because it's the 9th inning of a 2-run game. You might as well try and get Ramos back to the plate rather than on base. 2 guys on, and then Rafael Devers has, I think, his best at-bat of the entire series. Devers had a tough time at first base. I thought he was a little bit cold at the plate after entering the series pretty hot. This was his best at-bat, and it was cool to see. This was cool baseball television of 1-1 count. He takes some fastballs right on the border, and then Diaz tries to go to his slider in that last pitch, and it's just non-competitive. So Devers walks, and the bases are loaded. And you're getting that feeling in your heart as a Mets fan of, I watch Edwin Diaz pitch a lot. When he misses with a slider this deep into an outing that badly, it kind of feels like it's going to be fastballs to the end and whatever happens, happens. And I didn't like that formula because, you have Adames and Chapman up, who are 2 highly paid Giants position players. Chapman has 2 homers in this game. Adames has been red hot in the month of July. And I have a feeling that, these are guys that can time up a 98 mile per hour fastball if it's in a spot that they like it. Adames comes up first. Diaz carves him up. Gets a called strike at the top of the zone, which could have gone either way. I think it was a strike. Then he gets the swinging strike right off that. He goes a little bit higher. I love that execution. And then Adames in the 0-2 hole tries to work a count. Instead, he strikes out on 3 pitches, all 3 of them fastballs, all kind of in that similar high and away spot. Loved it. Chapman comes up, who's had a great game, Diaz just continues to blow fastballs by, ends up striking him out on 4 pitches. He throws 7 fastballs to 2 of the highest paid position players in Giants history and makes mincemeat of them, getting strikeouts on both and locking down his 23rd save. And the Mets sweep the Giants. This last game could have got away from them in in many different areas. And the bullpen held it down. The Mets got insurance runs when they needed it. And this was just great baseball by this team. I'm so pumped up that they were able to take out a fringe team and sweep on the road. Like, that is sweeps on the road. You might only get like one a year. And I thought the Mets got one in a really big spot here right before the trade deadline. And hopefully this convinces the front office to make some bigger moves and give this team even more talent, because I do think they're proving themselves to be one of the best teams in baseball right now. And the parity in the National League is awesome, but the Mets are right up there with the Cubs and Brewers, who are both 62 and 43. The Mets have a better record than the Dodgers now. They have their largest division lead in a long time. They're playing the best baseball of the year at the right time. They're getting hot. And you really saw a combination of great defense in the series. You saw the Mets stealing bases basically whenever they wanted to in this series, off one of the best defensive catchers in baseball, Patrick Bailey. Like, no easy feat there. So their stealing base was at will. They're playing great defense. The bullpen has seemingly gotten right again with enough rest and enough new bodies and, talented bodies at that. Brooks Raley and Gregory Soto. I know I just did 2 minutes on them, but that's a big addition for this bullpen. The starting pitching still feels like there's a higher ceiling to what they're doing right now, but they're doing enough. 5 innings, that's enough right now. And the offense, they're getting it from the bottom of the order with Francisco Alvarez and Ronnie Mauricio and Steady Eddie Brett Beatty, who has just continued to just kind of float in this Mets lineup, playing great defense and getting on base at least once a game. And then the top of the order, Lindor gets a homer in this series. Soto gets a big homer in this series. It's looking great, man. I'm excited about this team right now after, 2 weeks of kind of not being excited. And I think there's a funny thing you can do as a fan where you're getting close to the All-Star break and you're saying, okay, let's just get to the break and then hopefully this team resets and we'll be fine. And for a lot of teams, that break comes and then you resume play and it's kind of just the same. And I've seen the Mets do that before, where you feel like the break's going to be a respite and ends up being just 4 days off and then you're back to the same thing. It did feel like the All-Star break reset this team in a very beneficial way. Scrap that Red Series. I think the Mets flushed it, and they're playing really good ball right now. So that's a welcome sight. We'll do a little trade deadline talk, and then we'll bring in Ryan Cohen for the Padres preview. So the Mets did make their first trade. They brought in Gregory Soto. They dealt a couple prospects, 2 of whom I just wasn't very familiar with. One of them, Arcina, I hope I'm saying that right, throws 100 at low A, was one of the highest risers in the Mets system. So, there's going to be, I think, a point in time where the Orioles call him up and he probably ends up being a decent reliever for them. But again, the Mets had a necessity for a left-handed reliever. You trade a reliever in the future for the reliever now, even if it's a rental. And I do think the reliever prices are going to skyrocket. In fact, Ken Rosenthal just put out an article this morning that the game of cat and mouse has begun, especially with relievers, because that's what every contending team needs, is a fresh arm at the back of the bullpen. And there's a lot of guys out there that are high leverage arms that are going to be available. I don't know if the Mets go out and get another one. Like, I think I would love the idea of another guy that I trust to the level of Reed Garrett back there, because even with this nice stretch, I don't fully trust Ryan Stanek. I'd much rather see him in like the 6th inning of a game rather than the 8th inning. And I know Buteau had that nice stretch, but he's coming back from an illness, so he's not 100% right now. The Mets have a bunch of guys that I really like in the 6th and 7th inning. They have a guy that I like better than anybody in the 9th inning, in Edwin Diaz. I just want one more bridge guy. I still think Reed Garrett is great, but you don't want to overexpose him and overexert him, because we see what happens when that happens. One more setup guy would be great. Another team's closer, like a Kyle Finnegan or something like I don't think they're going to go out there and get Yohan Duran or Brock Stewart from the Twins. I don't think they're going to go out there and get this super, like Ryan Helsley. I don't think he's on the table for them either, even if he's not having the greatest year. Like, that price is still going to be high. But somewhere in between middle relief and high-end relief is what I think the Mets will go out there and get one more of at this deadline. The biggest rumor going around right now, and it was vetted by Bob Nightingale, who was at the center of rumors all the time, it feels like, is that the White Sox are shopping Luis Robert heavily. Or Luis Robert. It's not Luis Robert. That was a weird baseball thing where people just kind of assume the pronunciation of his name, and it's not. Luis Robert is on the market. It feels like he's on the market every year, and the White Sox never find the right price. But now he is a true rental to an effect, because Robert has a $20 million club option for next year. I don't know that whatever team acquires him, Mets or not, will exercise that option. So it's interesting to see that, in these final 2 months, he's on the shelf. He's been hitting better as of late. I feels like his ears kind of perked up at the idea of getting off the White Sox. In July, he's 13 for 37, which is a .351 batting average with 2 homers and 4 stolen bases, 6 walks to 7 strikeouts, plus incredible center field defense, like to the level, if not above, Tyrone Taylor. So he isn't a very alluring piece for this Mets team, who will probably go out there and get one more reliever. I don't think they're going to get a starter, because I think the prices are going to be out of their comfort level. So the only logical place to upgrade outside of that is center field. Tyrone Taylor, I love the guy, and I think his optics as a fourth outfielder are awesome, but his at-bats have been terrible for 2 months now, and the Mets can't continue to trot him out there in the 9-hole. And I think that as much as I love the Jeff McNeil center field experiment, and I think he'll continue to get opportunities out there, even if they do acquire someone like Luis Robert, it's not feasible long-term. Like, Jeff McNeil's not a center fielder. Even if he can play the position at a league average rate, you'd much rather have him at second base. And I think the team improves marginally when you have McNeil at second and some combination of Mauricio and Beatty at third, and then a true center fielder out there patrolling. So the rumor going around, as I said 2 minutes ago and then tangent off of, is Luis Robert for Mark Vientos. And it's interesting, for sure. Basically, the quote from Nightingale was akin to, the White Sox will do no trade with the Mets involving Luis Robert unless Mark Vientos is included in that deal. They love the look of Vientos. They believe in what he did last year, and they want those 4 years of control. And it is interesting, Mark Vientos in any trade talks, because of the option situation. Like, the Mets had an opportunity to give him some minor league time this year when he had an injury with his hamstring. Didn't look good in the minors. Came back up, and you can't really do anything with him without designating him for assignment and allowing the entire league to have an opportunity to claim him, because they used up all his options very early on in his career in 2022. So what do the Mets do? Vientos is putting together his best stretch of baseball this month with a 7-game hitting streak. He's still not really hitting for power. His plate discipline has gone to the wayside. He's not achieving that same loud contact that we saw so much of last year. And on top of that, the unexpected factor of it all is that Starling Marte is playing out of his mind right now. Like, he's hitting so well, like the best he's hit since 2022, when he was like the spark plug of the Mets offense. So the Mets have a right-handed DH option. We know that Mark Vientos is a negative defender at both third base and first base, and the Mets have plus defenders at those positions right now. If he's dead weight offensively and you have an opportunity to move him, do you do that? It's still a tough pill for me to swallow because of how good Mark Vientos was last year. I mean, he was a 3-WAR player in a little over 100 games. He had an .837 OPS. He slugged over 500. Like, you can't forget that this guy, for a large portion of last year's season, carried the Mets offense. He had 5 home runs in 13 postseason games. To give up on him a year removed from that stretch feels like a rush move for the Mets, but at the same time, if you look at Luis Roberts' career history, yeah, the recent seasons have been pretty dreadful from him. But is that player still in there? That guy in 2023 that put together 5-WAR, hit 38 home runs as a center fielder, and also stole 20 bases that year. And by the way, Luis Robert, 20-plus steals in each of the last 3 seasons. Imagine what he does with Antoine Richardson at first base. So I think in a perfect world, the Mets find a way to get this Luis Robert deal done without trading Mark Vientos. I think you have a logjam of position players there, obviously, but the Mets already have that. You're talking about a guy who is 80th percentile or better in arm strength, outs above average, and sprint speed, and has one of the highest bat speeds in baseball in Luis Robert. I just think that a change of scenery, and people have been saying this for years, but I still think it's true. Like, a change of scenery could do wonders for someone as talented as Luis Robert. And I did listen to the Mets Up podcast this morning. James and Mark, they do a fantastic job. Go check out their show if you haven't listened to it yet. James did a great thing in outlining what outfielders are getting paid around $20 million and why a club option could potentially be worth it to exercise for Luis Robert. I know it sounds steep, but you have to acknowledge, one, the Mets have one of the deeper payrolls in baseball. So if they do trade for Robert, and exercise that option, it's not too crazy on their 2026 payroll. And then you have to think about what other outfielders cost. Tyler O'Neill is getting, I think, $18 million this year. Anthony Santander is at $19 million. These guys are having terrible seasons, both hurt. Nick Castellanos is in trade rumors. He's getting paid $20 million a year to play right field for the Phillies. Like, there are tons of examples of corner outfielders, not even center fielders, corner outfielders who haven't hit the ball well and are negative defenders that get paid that level. And you got to think, well, if Luis Robert gets traded somewhere, not even the Mets, and has a great last 2 months of the year, he might get like $20 million on the open market. He might get a Harrison Bader contract, of 1 year, $13 to $15 million, and could be worth it. So I think the Mets definitely have to think about trading for someone like Robert. I don't think you trade for someone like Cedric Mullins because he's not the same caliber of defender, and I do think that the Mets prioritize that over whatever you get out of the bat. Like, they know to an effect, if they acquire Luis Robert, if he can't hit, he's still going to steal bases with incredible efficiency and play the same center field, if not better center field defense than Tyrone Taylor. And I think they take that. I think they like the optics of that. But I do think, and feel free to disagree, and that's what this is all about, I do think that if the price tag is Mark Vientos, I don't think they do it. Even if Mark Vientos is not the same kind of tools guy that David Stearns likes when he's constructing a major league roster, because he's a negative defender, a negative base runner, and he's not really hitting for his main tool, which is pop right now. I think even with that, there are certain people in the Mets front office that will protect Vientos, especially considering like the years of control and the fact that like for 3 months last year, for like a full half of baseball, which may not sound like a lot, but it felt like a lot last year, Mark Vientos was the engine of this Mets offense alongside the MVP runner-up Francisco Lindor. Like, you look back at Nimmo's numbers last year, he was not the player that he is this year. We all know the discourse around Pete Alonso in 2024, how he couldn't come up with the big hit at all. For a while, the Mets offense entirely was Lindor, Mark Vientos, and Jose Iglesias. And it's just funny how quickly things can change from last year to now. Especially, that includes Jose Iglesias as well, who we'll talk about. So, yes, I think if you're out on the Luis Robert train, you haven't done enough digging into the player that this guy is and how much of an upgrade he can be. I do think he is. Him and Harrison Bader, I think they share custody of the title of the best center fielder available on the market this year. I think I like Robert more just because of upside. And I think if the Mets go out and get him and he puts up an 800 OPS in 2 months and he steals you 15 bases and he hits you 10 home runs, I think he's worth that $20 million option. I really do. But it is a huge if he can come in here and reignite his career. Because you know what, man? He's 27 years old. He's got a lot of baseball left to play if he can find it again. And I'd love for him to do that in a Mets uniform. Because imagine how lethal that bottom of the lineup becomes, even more so when you have Mauricio firing, Beatty firing, Alvarez is the same guy he was in 2023, and then you add a productive Luis Robert to the bottom of that. That means there's no breathing room at any point in the Mets lineup. And I just think that this team can achieve so much when they live through that reality. I just don't know if you can trade Mark Vientos. Some people have stopped believing. I still believe that bat is in there somewhere. And he's just mired in this weird, deep funk where he's lost himself and has had a weird season because he's tried to change who he is. I think that Mark Vientos is still in there somewhere. But it's something that the Mets have to consider because right now, the best version of the Mets lineup does not include Mark Vientos in it. He is the odd man out. And him as a bench piece, he doesn't give you any defensive value like Terrence and Luis Angel Acuna and Tyrone Taylor if he were to figure into a bench role. Like those three guys give you speed, or not Terrence, but speed, defense, and a quality at bat. And Mark Vientos right now is just not giving you those things. So it makes a lot of sense. If it happens, I can't wait to talk about it more because it is a very interesting major leaguer for major leaguer trade that I think benefits both sides. But that's all we'll do on that rumor. That is the most concrete rumor that we've heard about the Mets trade pursuits as per the trade deadline. And we'll see if more comes of it. We could find out today. We could find out in 3 days. But I do think the Mets have one more move in them, whether it's just bullpen, some combination of bullpen and center field or center field. I think one more move is coming, and we'll probably do an emergency pod for it when it happens. Okay. That is my ramblings for 40 minutes. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. It's tough to do a solo show. I hope I did okay. And we're going to bring in Ryan Cohen now for the Padres preview. Joining us on the show now to preview a big series kind of for both teams. Yeah. Both teams are hot in the National League. Ryan Cohen, my good friend, the resident Padres fan on planet Earth, kind of. Biggest Padres fan in the world. You might have seen him on JM Baseball. You might have seen him in the Warehouse Games. He's in a lot of our stuff. He's never been on Shea Station, so I'm very excited to have him. Ryan, how the hell are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me. Honored. I got the text this morning on the train ride in. Do you want to be on Shea Station? And that's kind of like, do you want to get inducted to the Hall of Fame?
Right. It's like a bucket list kind of item.
So, yes, I'm stoked to be here.
So, your Padres, 57-49 on the year, firmly in the hunt for the wild card. Could be in play for the NLS crown because the Dodgers are kind of bad. 4 games out right now. Yeah. And then we kind of just buried the Giants for you. You're welcome. Thank you. How are you feeling about the team? How big of a series is this for you guys? And do you think, because I want to sprinkle this in, that the Padres will be welcoming a new teammate at any point this week?
Absolutely. To start there, yes. They will make a trade. It's AJ Preller and it's a trade deadline, so trades will be made. It's weird with the team on the whole because they started off red hot. 7-0, I think 14-3 was the start. Like they were red hot and they came off a great second half last year. You feel great about the San Diego Padres. Since that red hot start, which counts the same, it matters, they've been kind of 500. And a lot of it's been the lack of production from catcher and left field. And we've been told for almost 2 months now that there will be upgrades coming. We are 3 days away from the trade deadline. And as with every other trade deadline, there are tons of names being rumored to the San Diego Padres because, again, AJ Preller will be making a trade. So it's this weird, like, I'm happy with where the record is at. I'm not particularly pleased with the last 3 months of baseball, but I'm also excited for the players that will be added. So 2 good things, 1 bad thing. But I think this team has pitched well enough despite injuries and lack of production from pitchers that we expected more from and hit barely enough with an elite bullpen to have a good record. And I think it's a good team, assuming they make the additions we've been promised.
Yeah, you nailed it on the head that they're about 500 since their hot start. They started 14-3. They're 43-46 since that start, which is around 500. But again, that's been enough to kind of stay afloat and be relevant in this MLB playoff chase. And the wild card, it's kind of been weird as of late. Like a lot of teams are kind of stumbling in this big week that they need to have to like kind of be buyers at the deadline. Like the Cardinals, I think, might be firmly sellers. You guys swept them?
No, they took the first 2, and then the Padres took the back half.
So they were able to salvage that, but they're 54-53 in the year. Diamondbacks are 4 games under now. The Giants are only 2 games over now. Like I think the Padres have done enough to separate themselves from that pack and be a firm buyer. You did nail what they need because I'm looking at, first of all, there's 2 guys on your bench I've never heard of.
Trenton Brooks. Yes. And who's the other one you haven't heard of? Bryce Johnson.
Never heard of those guys in my entire life. One of them's going to have a big game because I think last year you guys had someone that killed McCoy. He killed us.
He's not even in the big leagues anymore.
Yeah,
he's retired.
He destroyed us last year.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, yeah, that makes perfect sense. So I think they're going to be in market for some kind of bench versatility. The top, I mean, this Padres top of the order, especially when Xander Bogaerts is like,
and he's been great,
good.
For the last month and a half, he's been superb.
Him and Willie Adames, I feel like are having very similar seasons. Like I just did a deep dive on him of like, oh, his last month has been awesome. Then I just looked at Xander. Xander's a back above league average offensively. Still plays a great defensive
Dude,
shortstop.
that's what blew my mind. Is last year, remember, they moved him to second because Ha-Sung Kim is an all-world defender at short. And it's like, okay, Xander's getting older. There aren't too many everyday shortstops in their 30s. He goes back to shortstop this year. He's not really hitting, and it's like, this guy has a noodle arm. The range isn't great, and he's been fantastic. Yeah. Like, every ball hit his way, he makes the play, and then he's had some range. He's made some nice throws. Like, oh my God. I feel like I'm watching a 25-year-old. Now, the bat wasn't there in April and May. Into June. At the end of June, he had a double against the Dodgers to tie the game. They ended up losing that game. But since then, he's been red hot with great defense and the base running. Steals bases, goes first to third. Like, he's never going to be a $280 million player. That was a bad contract, I think. I think they knew that at the time that wasn't going to be a great contract.
I think they were hoping that the front half would be mostly like his first year, which is like 4 WAR, 120 OPS plus, good player.
And what he's been for the last month and a half, which is, I'm happy with the contract right now. He's been great. So that's been a big development. When I say left field and catcher, Gavin Sheets has been the everyday left fielder recently. He's been a hero this year, but we need him to DH. He's perfectly competent in left field. He's not as atrocious as it was in April when he first started out there. But ideally, you get a good defensive left fielder who has a little bit of slug. You let Sheets DH every day, and then your lineup looks a lot more complete than running out Trenton Brooks and Bryce Johnson.
Yeah. Gavin Sheets and Andrew Vaughn are evidence to why I want to give Luis Robert a shot.
Same. Same.
On the shortstop front, I just looked into this because I was curious. +8 outs above average for Xander Bogaerts is more than Francisco Lindor.
Dude, he's been
+6,
superb.
which is
And
not
I mean, the main
what I
thing
would've
I'm
picked.
looking for from an infielder, if you get to the ground ball, do you make the play? And it's 99.9% yes with Xander, and that's awesome.
So, I mean, with the lengthening of this lineup, I think this Padres team gets a lot more scary. Right now, if you're a Mets fan, you're thinking, okay, what do I need to worry about? Obviously, if you've watched any Padres baseball in the last 3 years, you know that the front half is going to be lethal. Even if they're not completely right, the combination of Tatis, Arias, Manny Machado is having another great year, Jackson Merrill, who I think is getting off the schneid after being a little bit on the schneid, and then Xander, who we just mentioned, has been playing great ball. Behind that, you have Gavin Sheets, who's been a league average bat, but I think he's better than that, and he just kind of has some ebb and flow. Jake Cronenworth, who's been reliable, and then the bottom half of Jose Iglesias, old friend, and Martin Maldonado, which I do think, the Padres would be of sound mind to upgrade those 2 spots. Suddenly you have a lineup with no holes in it, and that's what they need.
Last year, the biggest difference between the 24 Padres, which was the best regular season of my lifetime, and the 25 Padres is the contributions from 4 guys who either haven't been good this year or haven't played this year. And that's Kyle Higashioka, who's in Texas, hasn't been that good. David Peralta, not in the league. Donovan Solano on the Mariners and has been horrible. And I'm forgetting the 4th one now, of course.
But I'm saying that's what Jerickson Profar is another one.
Profar, that's the 4th one. Who suspended.
I go where you forgot.
Right. Kind of didn't play this year. So, though we don't miss those players. Those players haven't been good and or not on the field. But we miss their production. And Higgy was great last year. And then you're running out Elias Diaz and Martin Maldonado every day. And that's just not very good. So I don't blame them for not re-signing those players. That was smart, actually. But you missed that production. And hopefully, after this week, if you make the trades you've promised the fan base you'll make, you're looking at a full 1 through 9 again. And that's the team that should have beat the Dodgers in the NLDS and won the World Series.
And I feel like that's one of the hardest parts about being a GM is that you can't, the Mets, I think, were right to not bring back Iglesias. And but the hard part is you need to find the next Iglesias. You need to find someone who's going to come off the bench, have a career year. Like in the past for us, it's been Jonathan VR. That's a good example of low expectations, comes off the bench, has tools, and then produces. And that's what separates playoff teams, I think, from just good regular season teams.
Well, if you look at this Padres team, they took a shot with Jason Hayward and Yuli Gurriel and Gavin Sheets. And Gavin Sheets hit.
Yeah. 1 for 3 is a pretty good ratio.
Now, Martin Maldonado, Elias Diaz, there have been some misses too. But Gavin Sheets is a minor league deal, and he's been the everyday left fielder /DH, and a good one. So I love the low risk, high reward thing. That's great. The problem is if you miss, you need to be able to go have a higher floor at the trade deadline and make an acquisition. And I do think it's coming. I'm not actually upset. But if we get to Friday and the lineup looks like this, I'm irate.
Yeah.
Pissed off.
I'd love to have you on the mic for that.
But I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't think it will.
Let's talk Padres pitching. Right now, you guys have only one probable starter for this series. Yu Darvish is dealing with some injuries. But tonight, at 9:40 p.m., it's going to be Frankie Montas versus a guy whose record absolutely shocked me at 3-10 with a 4.59 ERA, a guy who's also in trade rumors right now, Dylan Cease. And this is like one of the bigger reasons why I wanted to have you on, because I have not been able to watch a lot of Dylan Cease baseball this year. I have watched a lot of Dylan Cease pitching in the past, and I've been very impressed with his stuff. I think he's an extremely talented pitcher who, even with this down year, is going to get a Zach Gallen-esque contract, in my opinion, at 30 years old going into next year. But what is going on? What is wrong with Dylan Cease? Is it pure unluckiness? Is he having a nightmare season, or has there just been like lack of execution, more walks than you'd like? What's going on?
It's funny because before Dylan Cease in San Diego, we had Blake Snell, who the first half is ugly, walked way too many batters, and then second half became the greatest pitcher you've ever seen. Blake Snell won a Cy Young in San Diego, and at no point that season was I like,
yeah,
Blake Snell's got the ball. Like, it was always sketchy. And it's kind of the same with Dylan Cease, where he'll have starts where literally unhittable. He threw a no-hitter last year. He's dominant. He had a stretch last year. He was fourth in the Cy Young last year. Like, he had a stretch that was complete and total dominance. And this isn't an actual stat, but his dog plus is in the negatives. I like Dylan Cease. He seems like a very interesting dude. He's a beekeeper and writes poetry, and I'm in. I like him. I want to be his buddy. But as simple and as stupid as this sounds, when I watch him pitch and he's going to his head and he's nervous and he looks a little shaky, it looks like I'm watching a little leaguer. And he walks 3 batters in a row and you go, damn, man, if you threw strikes, they'd strike out, but you're walking them. And then you give up the homer, and now instead of 0-0 game, it's 4-0. Like, it's that quick. It happens quick with Dylan. And I think he's as likely to be traded as he is to have a dominant second half as a Padre, as likely as he is to suck in the second half. Like, I don't know what you're going to get. The stuff is there. He's healthy. He's out there every 5th day. But I think to just call it bad luck means you're only looking at the numbers and not watching the starts. Now, I'm not expecting you to watch every Dylan Cease start on the West Coast, but I do. And it's not just bad luck. That's just not true. There's a lot of self-induced damage. Yeah, you walk guys, you get behind in counts, and he's dominant. Like, he shoved against the Nationals, not a great lineup, 2 weeks ago, and then goes out and gets rocked by the Marlins in the next start. So
Marlins are pesky. Respect them.
They are. I learned. I went into that series thinking we were going to roll through them, and they won. So yeah. I have a lot of hope and optimism that Dylan Cease will be a San Diego Padre in the second half and be the Cy Young version of himself. I think that can happen. If you can get a controllable bat for 2 months of Dylan Cease right now, I think that's a move you have to make. And I don't even think that's selling on this season. I think that's just smart.
And like, the Mets are a similar team, and like, they might make a major leaguer for major leaguer trade, which are always really interesting if like teams benefit from them immediately. I want to bring you on because I see a lot of Mets discourse about Dylan Cease, and I am interested in like what would happen if you brought him into the fold. Like, what could the Mets do with him? At the same time, I don't think you can chalk everything up to being like, he's just getting unlucky, he's having a weird year, bad bip, all this stuff. Like, there is
sure,
but when you go through 20 starts and nothing's changed, there is a certain conversation to be had about that player.
It's also not his first bad season. Yeah, he was second in the Cy Young in 2022, and 23 was bad. 24, fourth in the Cy Young.
Maybe he's just an every other year guy.
Which, like, okay, and it's baseball and things are weird, but at some point, like, dog. Where's the dog? I love Dylan.
You know who does have dog?
Nick Pivetta.
Everyone in the Padres bullpen.
Yeah, dude.
The Padres bullpen has produced yet another fantastic product. Suarez has had ups and downs, but he leads the league in saves.
You know how many homers he's given up as a closer?
Like, in general?
Just this season.
3.
1. So, like, the ERA
it's more than Randy Rodriguez now.
The ERA isn't crazy, but I think it's high 3s.
To throw 100 and like not be afraid to throw your fastball for strikes and only give up 1 home run is pretty cool.
And as a closer, like, if I have a 1-run lead, the one thing you can't do is give up a homer.
And like, Diaz has that feeling too.
Yeah.
But
we call it the 4 horsemen.
Yeah.
When it gets to Morejon, Suarez, Adam, and Estrada, game's over.
Morejon was an all-star this year, right?
So is Adam, so is Suarez. It's a disgusting bullpen.
Yeah, and Estrada might be my favorite of those 3 besides Suarez. I think his fastball's gross. You also have Wandy in there. He's got a 3.42 ERA.
Which is hilarious.
Bounce back here. Like, they just have so many weapons.
Wandy is like maybe my 7th favorite. Like, I don't like when Wandy comes in. David Morgan, you probably never heard of him. He's disgusting, dude. He's got like a 2 ERA. He's nasty. Hoeing's down right now, but he's been really good. Like, it is a filth.
Where's that tall guy that I liked? You guys had a tall guy.
Sean Reynolds.
Yeah,
he's awesome. He's in the minors right now just because why not?
Sure.
If the Padres have a lead after the 5th inning, you feel like you have a win.
Yeah. They don't even have Alec Jacob here either. The
My best friend.
has
I know.
Sidearm.
Instagram follower.
Point is, the formula for the Mets to win this series is have a lead after 6 innings because their bullpen's been hot in the month of July. Same formula for the Padres, kind of do enough against starting pitching to cobble together a lead and then get to that 6th inning. I think the formula is interesting just because I don't know who's taking the ball for you guys in Game 2 and Game 3. It might be you, Darvish, who's been back recently and not been so great. Could be someone else in the combination of Kolek and Randy Vasquez, but Nick Pivetta. I think we get to dodge Nick Pivetta, right? I think he pitched yesterday.
He went Saturday, yeah.
And so we won't have to face him, who I think right now is easily your guys' best starter. But yeah,
Randy Vasquez is hilarious. He goes never more than 6 innings, 6 max. He walks 5 batters, 2 strikeouts, and doesn't give up more than 3 runs. It doesn't make any sense. He's not good. And he puts up good numbers. It's crazy.
It was never the Juan Soto trade. It was never the Michael King trade. It was the Randy Vasquez trade.
Randy Vasquez goes 4 2/3, and then you get it to the 4 horsemen and you win the game.
I'm going to ask you one last question before we wrap up here, because this, I think, was the most shocking thing I pulled. So the Padres have played, let me count, 56 games against winning teams this year. Teams with above 500 record. How many wins do you think they have?
Bad.
So yes, how many wins?
56 games.
56 games.
24.
Close. 22 and 34 against winning teams. I was shocked when I looked at that. Giants, who we just swept, 28 and 28 for reference.
I will say, I do think good teams beat bad teams. Yeah. And to completely ignore a record against sub 500 teams is faulty.
No, that's how you get into the playoffs.
Right.
Like those
if you can go
games.
500 against better than 500 teams, then right. I think the reason, if you look at those games against good teams, is the back half of the lineup. Maldonado, Diaz,
because it's
Trenton
so
Brooks.
easy to just maneuver the top and then target the bottom.
That's what the Dodgers do. I mean, the Dodgers and the Padres 1 through 7. It's Ohtani, Betts, Freeman is crazy. Don't get me wrong, but it's not that different
in terms of cumulative quality.
It's when you get to 8, 9, and they're running out like Pajes, and we're running out
Martin
Maldonado. So
tough pod for Martin Maldonado.
Dude, the guy sucks. I'm sorry, man. He's been bad. We got cut by the White Sox last year.
It's brutal.
So I'm not making an excuse. That's not a good enough record against teams above 500. It also doesn't feel like the complete roster that you'll see running into a playoff series if they get there. Yeah. So I'm not as worried about it as I probably should be because they're taking care of the bad teams. And if they weren't, they wouldn't be in a playoff spot.
It's a big week for both these teams with the trade deadline, with them playing each other. Last thing, Jose Iglesias hitting .293 in his last 13 games. Let's go.
He's had some clutch moments, man.
Go,
his single to right.
Go,
he just flicks a single to right field.
It's a nice swing. I like it a lot. Just take good care of him. All right. Shout out to Ryan Cohen for hopping on the pod. Hopefully that gave you the Padres preview you were looking for, Shea Station listeners.
Thanks for having me, Jolly.
All right. Thanks for being here. That was our preview of the San Diego Padres series. Shout out my boy Ryan Cohen for coming on the show. Pretty cool to have a JM baseball friend come on the Shea Station podcast. Hopefully you guys enjoyed his commentary as well. And thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed it, leave a like on the YouTube and subscribe to the channel if you're watching over there. If you're listening on a podcast app, leave us a rating or leave us a review on Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Those really help. It helps get some new eyes and ears on the show. And, I know that we have a weird release schedule and we're not always able to get to the mic, but we care deeply about the show. We want it to grow. We want it to be big for October when the Mets are in postseason play and doing big things. So we appreciate you and thank you for sticking with us even through the weird release schedule and all that. Hope you have a great rest of your week. We'll see you again on Thursday. This might be a 2-episode week because that's when we're slated to record, and hopefully we'll have a series win to talk about in San Diego. We'll see you then. LFGM.